Gary, cheers for agreeing to do the podcast, mate.
Thank you for inviting me.
Getting you in the hot seat. Obviously, we normally sort of start from the beginning of somebody's sort of career or story, but just to give you the audience a little bit of a background of how we know you. Obviously, you did our SRMC course in about 2017. Now we're going to chat about your sort of upbringing, Royal Engineer, sort of full career in the engineers. A sort of difficult journey sometimes people have when they resettle. Well, that's like working on a sort of CP surveillance circuit, and now learning business at a crazy pace as your company is growing at a crazy pace and at a crazy pace. Sorry, and all the things that come with it. But really chuffed to have you on, mate, and a fellow Welshman as well, and the oldest player in the Welsh Premiership is that's pretty cool.
Just recently,
but first engineer as well, mate. We've had on, so
I'm the first Sapper.
Yeah, first Sapper, mate.
Even
There's a lot of them around us. So.
Even though we are taking over the SRMC
world,
yeah.
And you were probably one of the early ones, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably the two of the main groups we get. Well, not main groups. We got lots of different people come on the course, but we get a lot of Marines and a lot of engineers. For whatever reason, I don't know, but maybe you're part of the reason why we get.
That's how Pete bought his house, mate.
Yeah. And now you've got this sort of setup as well. This is a really good setup.
Yeah, thanks.
I think that's where, early stages after I finished that course, it was, you posted a lot of things on. You were really active in posting what the SRMC course was. And I think I just wanted to highlight to my circle as well, just how good the course was and what I took from it. So I think that's where the first stages of the Sappers started. And then people would contact me and ask me what it was all about. I used to ring you and say, any chance we can get someone on last minute? And and I think they're just passing on the knowledge as well.
He always says yes.
Is that what it is? It's his fault.
So yes, make it happen.
But before we go to the Sapper bit, the other core and obviously you coming on the course and everything. Let's I know we chatted a little bit last night. Let's sort of start back of your background. Because I only found out last night.
He's Welsh now.
You're not fully Welsh.
A bit like him, mate. He's German.
I've got a little bit of German in me, so
that's worse.
We
cancel this. Nothing against the Germans at all, obviously. So I highlighted it. I'm an old man now, born in 1974, but I was born in the Lake District. So up in Barrow-in-Furness, it's a little Vickers shipbuilding town, and I was born up there. All my family's up there and everything.
Yeah, Defence, that's where they are, aren't it?
That's right, yeah. So, but it's a shit all over the place, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I didn't really see it. I was being brought up there. I thought that was the normal. I got in with the wrong crowd, wrong people, and even at like 10, 11, I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. Some things I'm even embarrassed about, I wouldn't even want to say. Yeah. I was a complete little shithead. My father coming and having to bail me out of jail, if you like, the police cautioning me, picking me up, taking me away, the father coming down at like 10, 11 years old, running away from home, you name it. I was an idiot back then. And I got in with the wrong crowd. And then my parents had friends who went down to Swansea and we got invited down for a family holiday. I think my parents had spoken about, I was one of five. I was the eldest of five. So, me meant to be leading the way, I suppose, if you like. And there's me off the rails, being an idiot. So they made the decision, long story short, to uproots. My dad got offered a job, uproots, move all the way down from Lake District all the way down to Swansea and set up a new life down there. And to be honest, I hated them for that. Because
do you have Welsh connections then, did you? No,
nothing at all. It was just, we had friends who had moved down there because of their work. We went down to visit them. We come from a, normal background, parents loving as hell, and they didn't have money to give us anything. They gave us what they could. My father was working on the bins, my mum was working as a cleaner, basic humble background, but we were loved. But I don't know, I just kept pushing it in their face all the time, And as I said, got in with the wrong crowd, and Yeah, they moved down there into Bonnymine, which is still a rough part of Swansea. You know, it's Twin Towns, that type of place. Which
made famous by the film.
Very much
great
so.
film.
The Welsh train spotting.
Yeah. So that's exactly drugs and magic mushrooms and everything else.
The film is actually pretty spot on as well. Actually.
It is. You know,
probably think it's a bit of a caricature, but
no. I mean, when I was living there, you know, buses used to not go up after a certain time because it was just too dangerous for the drivers. And it's still not a nice place to live. But, you know, like I said, my parents couldn't afford anything. So
still a good valley town, isn't
it? It's beautiful. Yeah, everyone knows each other. You know, everyone knows.
Steelworking, coal mines.
You're next to some beauty as well there, aren't you?
It's what, sorry?
Even if you're not in the beautiful spots, you're pretty close to them, aren't you?
Yeah, you're right on the doorstep of the town. There's Kilvey Hill, which is right there. You know, boys used to go up there and magic mushrooms and sit on the hill and whatever and smoking dope. It's you know, running away from, because I went to Kevin Engord School, which is right next to the Kilvey Hill, so that was where we used to stay away from the Mitch man, go running up there and hide away for the day, and then make our way back home where your parents thought you were still in school. But it was a different level of, like, up in Barrow, it was, like I said, it was embarrassing stuff. I wouldn't even want to talk about stuff I got up to at such a young age. You know, people I went round with back then are either dead now or they're on the most wanted list up there, or they're in prison. It really is. So the best decision they made.
Like sliding door moment.
Yeah.
How your life could have been completely different.
And that's why I class myself as Welsh. You know, and no matter what people think, you know.
That's what you're made, isn't it? If you're going at that age.
I started my life.
Yeah.
I
started really growing up then. And
yeah. And I learned about myself there. I got in with the right people. All right, they were hard boys but friends for life, if you like.
Don't any bother going there as an English lad?
Yeah,
I was going to
ask in the school, and Ginger.
Yeah, Ginger. Double hit.
I used to get bullied when I was in the other school, you know, by other people. I was a skinny ginger kid. So I was bullied at school, and I always just said, I'd never, ever will I ever put up with being that person again. I'm starting a new life. You know, although I was an idiot, the people I used to go around with in school, I used to get bullied by this one individual every day. And I hate bullies. You know, for that reason, really. And I've always stood up for myself and stood up for other people because of that, because I don't like it. It's just my personality.
Yeah,
really.
same, mate.
But, yeah, and I like I said, I class myself as Welsh. Wales, England this weekend. You know, I know I'll be supporting. Exactly.
This will go out after that game, so hopefully. And I've got a bad feeling about this one.
Have you?
At the Principality as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've got nothing to lose.
Sometime, haven't we?
Yeah, that's the only game you care about winning, isn't it, Welsh?
So it's 16 games, I think it is now, isn't it? Yeah. 16 after Scotland, this.
Told you we'd chew on some rugby in this chat, mate. Everyone.
A little bit of a little bit of a comeback recently, but we're in dark times.
Yeah, I think, you know, Gatlin leaving, we've gone from me being brought up to
let's
Gatlin.
Go back to you. Go back to you.
But Gatlin leaving, I think we've got nothing to lose. You know?
So, as Dunk said, what obviously I'm from a valley town as well, we're not too far away. Any issues being like a sort of an English kid?
Yeah, initially I was piss taken out of me and everything, but I think I got in with the right boys. You know, it wasn't, it was the top boys, it was the main characters, if you like. You know, English and schoolwork and things like that, I was all right. I wasn't thick. I wasn't struggling, you know. But I got in with the right boys, got in with the right thing. Then I went up to Bonnymine Rugby Club, and as we mentioned earlier, I'd always played rugby league up in Barrow. So I went up to the club just to see a few of the boys were playing there. It was close to my home. It was close to the school. So I went up there, and I just still remember to this day the coach saying to me, "What position do you play in?" I've come from a rugby league background. And I was like, hooker, which is like scrum half.
Yeah, scrum half. Yeah.
And then he's like, "No, you'll never play hooker, mate." And now I didn't know union. I didn't have a clue. So I was like, "No, I'm hooker." "No, mate, you're too skinny. I'm hooker." So it was all, and then when they put me in the front row, and I was like, and I didn't want to say anything, and I was like
pushing these.
"Oh, this is okay." Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I think I just had to prove him wrong, and I wasn't going to hold my hand up and go, "No, I'm wrong. I'll play there." So I stuck with it.
40 years later, mate, you're still proving wrong.
40 still, I know.
When did you start filling out? Like,
military.
Yeah.
When I joined up, I was skinny when I went through training. I think it was just getting into the military and then getting more regular rugby, you know, because we used to play like Played civvy rugby on a Saturday. Wednesday would be sports afternoon, so it'd be like 2 games a week. And then because it was rugby league season and union, and it was like 12 months a year, I'd play.
One thing the army does well in it, the sport.
Oh yeah,
you get the opportunities probably more so. Marines are probably a bit too small to get that all the time. I think it's got better now, but there's definitely times when we were in and playing that. Oh no, sorry, we need you on this exercise. We need that, and you couldn't go and play.
Oh, yeah, that's always the problem.
Which was terrible. Like unless you're a big.
But I think that's where the army's going backwards.
Right.
Because I don't know about now, but I think as I was leaving, it was getting more to that case where, we were too busy to go and do things. We were struggling to get people off.
It was a busy time though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So going into the military, joined that young?
I didn't initially join. I joined at 18, but my father had been in the military. My grandfather had been in the military. It was always something I was interested in.
All engineers?
Actually...
You're going to tell you was a bootneck, can you?
No. I actually was going to join the RMP.
Oh, my God.
I went down to join the RMP, and I don't know whether it was a case of because I'd been a shithead as a younger ages, and I could see myself changing a little bit and maybe offering something. I don't know. I look back in hindsight, what was I going to do? Now I know the RMP, nothing against them, but the best thing I did was the careers guy inside was Sappers. And he said, look, you've passed everything. You could join this if you like. And there's a lot more scope. You learn about blowing shit up. And so I was like, oh, right, okay. So that's why I went for it. And speaking to my dad as well, he was like, you'll get a trade from it. You'll get this. So, I joined the Sappers.
What were you doing before that? Did you stay in school? Or?
So I didn't continue school. Yeah. I used to work in a nightclub, glass collecting. Then I started working in... Gower Chemicals it was, and it was basically we're just on Fabian Way, and we'd load ISO containers with all these canisters and things like that. And I worked there. I worked at Toyota for a little while in the parts department, but that was like on a YTS scheme, so really cheap, stupid money, silly money. Just couldn't cope with it, so I went away from that. And then that's when I joined. Did a bit of driving for like a local delivery service. So that's when I joined then, went down the careers office, and I joined at 18 and a bit. So I think I was 18 in October, and I joined the following February.
There always a bit of ambition for the military to do that?
I always wanted to, but I was always apprehensive, I think, because, people used to say I won't be able to manage the discipline, I won't be able to... It was the fitness as well. I was never the fittest guy. I played rugby, but I was a front row forward. Even though I was slim, I just... I wasn't the fittest of blokes.
It's a different type of fitness.
You're apprehensive about it as well, I suppose everyone is when they're joining.
Yeah. When you join the army, obviously the engineers, do you have is it a specific engineer video you watch, or is it just you've seen the army video and then you've gone in the careers office and it's like if the guy be over the other side of the desk is engineers, he's pushing you that way.
He's pushing you that way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's exactly. It's not like you go and watch. Oh my God! Like I get to blow stuff up.
You need a bit more aptitude, though, don't you?
I think. Yeah.
You're not just going to go if you. If you were completely solid, they wouldn't be pushing you to the engineers necessarily, would they?
No, and that's what he said. I think at the time we had to do like tests and everything, and then he gave us a list of what we could actually join, what we were capable of joining, and what we'd be able to pass within our capability. Because with the engineers, you still do your basic training. You still then go from phase 1 over to phase 2 to do your combat engineering type training, and then from there you go into your phase 3, which is like your trade training. So
how did you find training?
The first part, the basic training, I struggled.
Enjoy it though?
I enjoyed it because of the camaraderie, meeting the boys straight away. I mean, only recently, well, I'd say recently, a couple of years ago, we met up for our 30-year anniversary,
awesome.
And it was really good because we joined in 93 and it was 2023. We managed to all get together after 30 years, majority of us anyway. Obviously we lost guys on the way and, we paid respects to them when we were having a couple of drinks. But, that was good after 30 years to come together. Yeah. So it was good. I mean, I didn't get back partied. I stayed with the same group of guys. Some people did get back partied. I had one instructor who said to me, you'll never make it in phase 2. You'll never be a sapper. You'll never, just had something for me against me. I don't know what it was, but, like I said,
you either thrive on their moments or...
Yeah, well, I thrive.
They did a test a bit, didn't they, as well?
No, he had a thing. Yeah, he had a thing. I mean, like I said, I wasn't ever at the front of the running party. I was never at the front. I was, majority at the back, and I was always trying to push myself a little bit more. I'd keep going. You know, I'd never stop, I'd never quit, but I was never one of the racing snakes. You know, I was never one of them out to the front going, because, you know, I had my own stuff going on, you know. So I don't know, but I think that pushed me then. And then phase 2, loved that because it was all about getting hands-on, learned about blowing stuff up and building bridges and lifting bridges. And yeah, I started getting into it a bit more. I think like the pressure was off. I'd already passed as a soldier, but I now wanted to be that combat engineer, you know. And then I did my phase 3, which was just a piss up in Chatham, basically. Learning to be a blacksmith, which I've never touched.
Oh, that's a good little skill, that, though.
Yeah, never touched it. But I did a bit of metal work when I was posted out to Northern Ireland in one of the workshops. But yeah, never touched really blacksmithing.
You deploy pretty quickly once you've passed?
Yeah, so I passed, and then I got posted straight out to Germany, Hamel, which was to 3-7 Squadron, which at the time I didn't find out until I got there. It was like known as the Bad Boy Squadron. It was full of hot meatheads, but I tell you what, it's the best squadron I've ever been in. You know, because they did look after you. You knew then. I mean, you know, if you're allowed to say, but you had all your initiation stuff, and you had all the. I was treated like shit. I used to.
They've stopped with that.
Oh yeah,
part of what everyone I was doing.
Yeah.
You know, it was something that was there. Obviously, people were good and bad versions.
Gone now, though, isn't it? It's gone pretty much gone from the military completely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a little bit behind closed doors. Yeah.
There must be still some versions of it that's hidden in
nothing like it was.
Yeah, nothing like it was.
Yeah, nothing like it was.
Rugby lads kind of get it a lot of the times.
Yeah.
You know, there's a hierarchy that you need to prove yourself to. Obviously, some people take it a bit
I think
too far.
that's what it was. It was like I'd have these. You know, I wasn't the biggest of blokes, but I'd have these people coming up to me that they'd be right in my face, shouting in my face, and because I was a new spog, you gotta, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, I'd fucking smash you. I'd absolutely. You just say, going, okay, yeah.
Play the game.
Yeah, play the game. So you keep your mouth shut and you just get accepted then. And then it wasn't, we used to play corridor rugby and I used to fucking love that then. After a few piss-ups and in the bar, we'd do like green fizz on a Friday, go in the bar, get drunk, and then, you know, you'd be treated like, because you were young, you'd be stood up on the, well, I won't go into detail, but standing up on the bar, doing little things, games, and then they'd take the piss out of you. And then we'd play like corridor rugby and that's where I'd come out.
Well, we never had Germany deployments in the Marines.
No,
always something I wouldn't mind doing. Actually, kind of looks like a good place to
your
go.
Fatherland.
Yeah, back to the fatherland.
let's talk about you.
You still got family there. Yeah, you've still got family, haven't you?
Yeah, it's got family.
I think that's what was good because we weren't going home on weekends. You know, where like the UK
because you bond more.
Yeah, and so we bonded, and it did become a really good. And then from there, I did. This was when I first got into search. So, you know, looking for IEDs, looking for explosives and things like that. And because we had a 6-month tour to Northern Ireland in the 94. But I became part of the search team and then I got selected to be part of what was called the Specialist Search Equipments team. So we were a 2-man team based down in Armagh, civvies all the time, assisting the police, assisting the military on searches. They'd find something in a derelict farm or something, and if we couldn't, then a helicopter would just drop us 2 off out there, have a look, find out what we need to find, and then they'd helicopter us out. You get all the guys, probably the bootnecks out on the cordons, watching us going, who are these boys? Who are these dickheads? You know, but I was a young sapper, and it was really good. That I'd shown a huge interest for search after that. That's where my career went then, on the search side of it, because it was just amazing.
That's where you driving around in like a specific wagon. I remember seeing them before. I'm wondering what they were.
Yeah, so we had it was a van. We used to drive a van, and in the back of the van, it was all like forensics. So you couldn't, everything had to be cleaned because, you know, we used to take swabs on places and it'd tell if there'd been explosives there. We could check in the machine.
What a small team?
2-man team.
Oh,
that was it. There was
a job to get that early.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, I was really fortunate from going and doing the search course to then getting selected to be part of the reset team. So there was teams of us scattered around in Belfast, in Armagh, in Besbrook, and, you know, a couple of teams scattered around. Then you'd have a reset, a Royal Engineer Search Advisor, who was a senior NCO, or sometimes an officer, but on this case it was a senior NCO who would then, you know, monitor us, and he'd be our IC, and he'd come out on the ground and just, he was our figurehead that we'd go to. It was really interesting.
Any
very good.
Big finds in that job?
Yeah, we had a few. I don't know what I can say on here, but we we did a big job right on the border, which was we worked alongside the Garda and the PSNI as it was then, or the IUC, and then we coordinated a big strike on this farm building. I don't know, people might have a look and see what this farm building in that does cross over the border, if you like.
30 years ago now, mate, we're all friends.
Yeah. Was it like a making factory or
that's what it was intended to be, but you know, he disappeared. He'd gone to he had tunnels leading off everywhere. There was breakfast still there that was warm, so he'd literally just been warned off. You know, there was farm lanes going down there, so there was no way for him to get out. But yeah, he disappeared, and there's a lot of good finds there. But yeah, it was really good. Like I said, I was only there for 6 months. I played rugby there as well. So because I was based in Armagh, one of the part-time soldiers, he was coached down at Armagh. Then he found out I'd played a bit of rugby before I joined and what have you. So he took me down there, and I ended up playing for Armagh then, playing rugby for their first team.
Oh.
And then I think I'm probably ever the only British soldier that's probably played in because at Christmas time,
I better get that quiet.
I was there over Christmas where we played. There was half a game of Gaelic football and half a game of rugby. So we played against a local Gaelic team, and we played, I'd say, half and half. So probably the other British soldier that's been serving there at a time to play Gaelic football as well. So, but it was good. It was really good. It's some good people.
The rugby's not actually split as it like football is.
In what way?
You know, as in Republic of Ireland. You know,
right.
You don't have it with the rugby for whatever reason.
No.
Maybe to get over it, sort of thing.
It was. They knew some of them knew who I was up the road, but not all of them. It was just a Welsh boy that was over there playing rugby, you know, from Wales. So, but I've managed. You know, I got posted out to Northern Ireland, and then I ended up playing a bit of rugby over there as well for like Antrim, Ballymena, City of Derry, Limavady. So I played some good rugby out in there as well, and I've got some great friends. Loved it. Loved my time over there. I always said if I didn't marry an Irish girl, if I didn't marry a Welsh girl, cut that.
That's gone. Obviously, that was back in the sort of punchy days in sort of 94, 95.
Yeah, 94. Yeah, I was there. Like I said, it was a 6-month tour, but it was good. And then I came back from there, and then I got posted on my second trade course. So I ended up leaving there. And then I got posted out to Northern Ireland then, working in the workshops, 4-3. Again, it was more like public order type stuff, you know, and building stuff for public orders and barricades and managing teams. Again, I carried on playing rugby, played a lot of core rugby, started playing rugby league. So yeah, that's where the rugby started kicking off. Playing a lot more.
Sorry to go back on the Sapper role. Obviously, you got the search side, the EOD stuff, the building bridges, any form of engineering or construction sits with Sappers.
Yeah.
What does Sappers mean as well?
It's something from one of the World Wars 1 or 2. It's like sapping a trench.
Right.
You used to get the sappers in, the engineers in to dig the trenches and what have you. So it's like sapping, and that's where it's come from. Sapper.
The rank structure is Sapper as well.
Yeah, that's right. So we're not privates, we're sappers.
Yeah, sappers. Yeah.
And then
same as Marines. Marine, you're not a private.
Not a private. You straight away. It's exactly the same. We're sappers from the very beginning.
So I believe there's a few more Windles in the army, mate. Sort of Saving Private Ryan style. There's quite a few, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I joined. I was one of 5. I joined in '93, and then my father was in before, obviously, in the '70s in Northern Ireland. But then my 2 brothers also joined as well at their stage. So Aaron, my younger brother, he joined the Sappers. I think he did about 12 years, 13 years. Got out medical discharge with his back. And then my other brother, he did 22 or 24 years as well in the RLC. So he was a chef, but then I think, you know, over time, away from chefing, he got into like logistics and all that facilities management type stuff, and that's what he's doing now. Right. Now he's left. So he left as a WO2 as well. Nice. So Aaron left as a corporal after 12, 13 years, and Jason left, as I say, I think he left not long after me. Right. I left in 2017. But yeah, all of us joined.
Oh, awesome.
All enjoyed their time?
Yeah, believe so. I think, you know, we spent a bit of time together.
They followed you in, like, because you were in, they sort of saw it as a
Yeah, I
career
think
path to go
so.
down?
Yeah, I was the older brother, if you like. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for them, but it was just I was the older brother. You know, my father had been in. I don't know if it had ever appealed to them beforehand, but then they got to see a bit of the military life, modern day military life, not just hearing it from their dad or our dad. And then I think, yeah, it was just something they transcended into as well. But like I said, when I was out in Northern Ireland as a posting, Jason went out there as a chef, and Aaron got posted out there only 17 years old. It's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
We joked about it the other week, actually, because I actually banned him from drinking. Because I used to get people knocking on the door and saying to me, you need to have a chat with your brother. Now, I'd not long done like the boxing, the regimental boxing. So I was regimental flipping heavyweight champ. We'd fought against a team that had come in on a 6-month Roulemont tour. And so I was regimental boxing champion, and it was just people were knocking on my door. I played rugby, all that. And then people were knocking on my door and saying, you need to have a chat with your brother, because he's in the bar gobbing off saying my brother's this, my brother's that. No. Yeah. And I was like, oh. So in the end, I had to ban him from drinking. He was only 17-year-old young boy, just joining the army. His big brother's like boxing, rugby. I'm going to push off a little bit and get away with it.
I can't save you from all this, mate.
Yeah, you need to be careful. Some of these boys are bigger than me. Shut up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we all served at the same time. So that was good, to be fair.
Obviously, I suppose 1990 to sort of 2010 was a pretty busy time if you're in the military. Kind of, where did you, I presume, Kosovo,
Bosnia and things like that. I didn't do Bosnia. I got Kosovo, so I got posted back to Germany.
Yeah.
And a place called Dog Squadron, another bad boy squadron, if you like. But
I kept posting you there, mate.
I don't know. Something, I know.
Yeah.
But went to Dog Squadron, and then Kosovo obviously kicked off. But it was at the stage where we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, the government weren't making any decisions. So we went across and we sat in Macedonia for quite a while. That, for me, Kosovo was probably, it's funny to say, like the highlight of my career, because, you know, I represented rugby. I played a lot of rugby, did a lot of things with Northern Ireland, loved Northern Ireland, did Iraq at Basra Palace, did a bit of mentoring and everything else, taught on the course for guys going out to Afghan. But I think Kosovo was, for me, probably like something that really sticks out, because I struggled when I came back.
Yeah, it doesn't get spoke about as much, does it? People just go, oh, yeah, Iraq, Afghan. But actually, that was a pretty like punchy job for a lot of people. Or
Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma seen on. Not that we went, but from what I hear,
It was more the humanitarian, stuff you don't train for. The humanitarian type. It was like, we were based in Macedonia for quite a while waiting. I was a 2IC at the time, a Lance Corporal. I'd been stepped up to be a Lance Corporal, last minute, to be a 2IC last minute. So it was my first real role. My section commander, a guy called Phil Robinson, really hell of a guy. I learned so much off him. And I'll talk about him later, because he offered me another job opportunity when I was leaving. So, but yeah, I learned a lot from Phil, and he guided me quite well, and I was a 2IC for him. But yeah, in Macedonia, we trained, we did things just to prepare, and then we got the nod that like all the refugees were coming, because obviously when Milosevic went into Kosovo and all these soldiers were genociding, causing all the havoc they did.
Cleansing and
it was horrendous. So, everyone, all the locals disappeared up to the hillsides, up to the hilltops. And we then, the UNHCR and all the humanitarian aid, they sent buses over. So we got the nod, like in 24 hours, we're going to get buses coming through the gate. We need to set up a camp. So we set up what's called Brazda. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So it's Brazda, Brazda, Brazda tented camp. Probably the biggest refugee tented camp to ever be built. And we had 24 hours to put this together, put all these tents up. Everyone worked together, putting tents up. As part of the engineers, you spoke earlier about, what else do we do? As engineers, we provide water, so, we use like a system. So in a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare situation, we can still produce water to the guys. Well, that's the same as this water that was running through this tented camp that, people were washing clothes in, pissing in, shitting in. We could turn that into potable drinking water using this machine. So we set up a water point. We set up an area for blankets to be handed out. We were tired. We were really tired. We worked the 24 hours, But, you know, we knew all these refugees were coming in.
What was the sort of scale of this camp? Just for the picture it size-wise?
Oh, I wouldn't like to say. I wouldn't like to exaggerate. I wouldn't like to say it, but it was huge. You know, there was so many different. The whole battle group were putting all these tents up,
and these are people fleeing the conflict.
That's right. Yeah, they disappeared up to the hills.
Yeah,
and then the UNHCR sent across buses, or you know, I wouldn't like to say who sent across the buses, whether it was government led but the humanitarian people sent buses across, picked up these people, and then they came across. And you couldn't imagine the scale. We were expecting these buses to come in, you know, these 52-seater buses, but it was like these buses had come up crammed with people hanging out the windows because
they just kept coming as well.
They just kept coming, and you're like, what is going on? And it's giving me goosies now because you were watching these people coming off, knowing that they'd ran for their lives to get away, left everything, been shot at, lost people, witnessed genocide, getting off these buses crammed, looking for safety. Women getting off the bus, cradling dead babies because they just didn't want to hand them up, you know, they just didn't want to. And it was just harrowing. And so many of us at the time, you know, we were tired. So our commanders had said, look, go and get your heads down. You've just done all this. Let the UNHCR now dish out the blankets. Let the humanitarian people take over. A couple of us went for a little walk around just to try and get to the scale of it and just help a little bit because it was just horrendous. You know, I was a single guy at the time. You know, I didn't have any family or anything, no kids. But seeing all these kids with no parents, as I said, women cradling babies, dead babies, it was just horrific. So we then took it upon ourselves, some of us, to start dishing out blankets as well, and just to try and help and just be there really, and just, you know, say to the medical teams, you need to go and have a chat with this lady. You need to go to this tent here, or taking them, guiding them down, because it was just horrible.
Where was this in timeline of the conflict?
Just before we went across the border.
Right.
So it was just before. We provided water service for quite a while. We'd set up, as I say, at the water point, and they used to line up for food, not far from us, blankets, and it was just a daily routine. We then started giving security and offering security on the gate as engineers, just to bolster up the security on the site to protect these people, because it started attracting a lot of people coming up to the gate then. So people would come up to the gate looking for families, and we didn't know who was who. So you had to be careful.
Like in the thousands, people.
Oh, yeah, hundreds of that. Yeah, thousands. It was like a little small village. And, you know, obviously rubbish was getting strewn everywhere. There was no real toilet facilities. So it was quite drastic. But, and then, as I say, we got the nod then that the government had agreed we could go across the border. And we were part of that force, and we were lined up, and then HR came and we went across the border, and I was part of the liberation of Kosovo then. So it was amazing. But then when we got across the border,
loads of bits the audience want to know, and ourselves included, how long did that take for the liberation of Kosovo, time-wise?
So we're talking, in 2000 now?
No, I mean, as in, how long did it last?
Oh, I wouldn't know. But in what way? What do you mean? How long were we there waiting
before
at the border?
Before the point where it was kind of like liberated and it was kind of declared over then?
But we were there for the end of our 6 months tour, and then we handed it over to, you know, the unit that came in and carried on that liberation, really. Because what we did, when we got into there, we set up base in what was a brick factory.
Roles, wasn't it?
Yeah, peacekeeping. So
it wasn't recognised by a lot of countries, is it, as its own entity now.
Yeah. But when we were going across, there was still people in Kosovo. You know, not everyone had escaped and not everyone had come across. So they were lining the streets. They were throwing flowers at us. You know, some of the soldiers that were there, they'd be taking pot shots at us. We'd pull over to like a garage. They'd take pot shots at us and then run. It was little things like that. There was tanks that were strewn just left on the side of the road. But yeah, once we settled, we got set into a place then. We set up a bit from the brick factory, and we based ourselves out of there. And we just used to go out to, our job then was to go out to little villages. And we used to go to these villages. And as I said, I was a 2IC. The first thing we used to do was because we're the engineers, mines. So we used to go out and just help the villages. All the refugees had come back now, you know, so they were back in their homes. about getting settled, but we wanted to educate them on what to keep an eye out for, because we didn't want any further casualties. We lost a couple of guys out there from picking up loose explosives. So there was a couple of sappers that had died out there helping the locals move these explosives. We don't want them to make mistakes. So we went out and we used to, our job was to educate them and put on like a mines thing, and we'd have like interpreters teaching for us and talking, repeating what we were saying. And what was really humbling was, at the time, like when they were in the hills, they used to sing this song, and it was just about freedom. All the kids used to sing it, and all the parents used to sing it, and it was just about, they wanted their freedom back, they wanted their countries. And every village we visited, after each one, I had my, the old camera, the old video camera. So I had that with me, and I've still got the footage. But like, they'd bring all the kids out and they'd sing to us. And it was this, we found out through the interpreter, it was this song about freedom, because they were just so thankful for what we'd done for them, And then as a 2IC, I'd disappear off. I would have a chat with the local, the leader of the team, the elder, the village elder, if you like, and just gather information, what they needed, water, if they needed food, if they needed, and then, they'd identify if there was like a shallow grave, something like that, and that was quite, because they'd have that in some of the little villages where local to them, there'd be like a shallow grave with bodies. They didn't know how to dispose of it or get rid of it. So, I
remember that, obviously seeing it in news or reading about it.
Yeah.
A lot of that going, a lot of shallow graves found. And
yeah.
So it had quite an impact, that, mate.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, as I said, humanitarian, because you can't train for that. You can't train for thousands of refugees just turning up and you witnessing them getting off and knowing what they'd been through. You know what they've been through. You've heard what they've been through, but actually witnessing
them. It's not trained for at all.
No.
Not in any way, really.
No. And the soldiers you looked at as being this force or military, whether it's Marines, Air Force, Army, doesn't matter. You're looked at as these big gung-ho, and we're not, and that's where I think people get a different perspective on what we have to deal with and adapt to, if you like, quickly.
Even the bit you said, putting in water supplies and sanitation, all that people just forget that's something that the military does. You think it's just blokes running around with guns all the time. Actually, there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, you were kind of sitting in both camps, really, didn't you, with the engineers, where you kind of do now warfighting role and a peacekeeping role. I know you can do that in other forces and paras and everything else, but maybe it's more so in sort of engineers, because you've got the before, the war bit and the after, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
You're kind of seeing all that seeing it in a different way, I think, to perhaps.
I think that's where, like, with your training, you've got your basic soldiering, and there's a gradual progression. You've got your basic soldiering, you go and do your combat engineering, which is your water supply, your mines, your bridge building, your fortifications, all that type of stuff.
Toilets,
yeah. And then you do your trade training. So there's I think that's that natural progression within the engineers, where they do offer you everything. And then, from the engineers, you've also got the scope to go commando or para trained as well. And you've also got your divers, you've got your bomb disposal, you've got the search, which I went on to, So there's so many different aspects with the engineers, with the sappers, that you can be, employed in, but you've still got a hat, whatever the situation is. You
probably think it'd be a nice shirt and giving it, sort of throwing you a compliment, but we generally, I've said this quite a few times, like, we obviously get a lot of engineers that come on course. But lads, lads do always seem like, it's
pretty switched on,
pretty clever, switched on, like a higher degree of whether they were that blocks before they joined or the actual engineers made them that way. But
I think
pretty much every lad we've ever had on course, you're like, he's like
good lad.
Yeah, it's a fair amount to the job as well. You got to turn your hand to most things.
Yeah. I suppose you got to have a certain brain as an engineer wise to, like, it's an analytical type brain to. It couldn't be everyone, could it? Within the forces, perhaps to become an engineer.
I think you're right. It's not the individual. I think, like, for me, I was a little scrote growing up. I joined Sappers because the recruiting officer said it wasn't something I wanted to do, but the recruiting officer said I could do it, and then I thought, I'll get something out of it. And that turned me into, because, as you say, you can put your hand to anything then, because you've got all these skill sets and all these people around you that you work with They might be para trained, they might be commando trained, they could be bomb disposal trained or diver, and they've all got that, and you work with them within that little small environment of being a sapper, first and foremost.
How many is there? What's the sort of head count for?
Same as us, I think.
Similar to cool, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I wouldn't like to say.
6,000?
7,000, something like that.
I wouldn't like to say.
The Marines are about.
I'm going to get held to ransom on this.
If you say it wrong,
if I say a figure and then people go, no, it's not actually.
No, I remember, I think, I might be wrong, I think it's about 7,000, where the Marines used to be about 6, but now we're about 3.5.
Right,
something.
okay.
There's not many. That's where you end up, just the same as the Marines, where you end up knowing everyone.
Yeah.
You know a lot of people because it's such a
Small circle.
Yeah, there's always a link to someone.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Kosovo, any obviously sounds like a completely different experience to anything we've had, but any sort of post effects of that, like it must be pretty horrific with the ethnic cleansing, the mass graves, and everything else.
Yeah, I think that, like I say, that's where I really found myself, and I don't know, I was ready to leave. I was, I struggled with that. I struggled with what I came back to. Struggled with friends. Struggled with everything. I lost my way a little bit. I don't know what I was doing, whether I was just trying to find a different reality or I don't know, is the honest answer. I mean, I bleached my hair blonde, for God's sake. I bought a Z3. I bought
That's common in a ginger community though.
What, to get rid of it? Don't tell my mum. Don't tell my mum. Well, I bought a Z3, then I messed up going on the piss, and then I ended up smashing my Z3 and it was all my fault, and I was 20 grand in debt. I lost my way. I really did. I don't know what it was. I just came back from there and I just struggled.
From seeing a different side of humanity, or
exactly that. Just seeing how people could be treated like that, And I think it goes on to them. I don't know whether it's my character. When I was younger, I used to sit on the door. I used to worry about I watched a film once called Amityville Horror from years ago.
I remember.
It was about a guy who gets possessed and kills his family. And I just had this thing of someone coming into my house and killing my family. And I used to sit on the steps when everyone was sleeping and just I wanted to protect my family. I don't know what it was. And again, seeing all these people that couldn't defend for themselves and being treated the way they got treated, inhumanely in modern day. It's not something.
Well, kind of like that bullying thing again.
Again, yeah, bullying. And I always, from that day, and I started a new life, and I was like, I'm not putting up with any more bullying. I'm never going to be bullied again, ever. And I haven't since. As you asked the question earlier, when I started filling out, playing rugby, I started getting a bit bigger and chunkier, if you like, focusing more on my physique because I was playing better level of rugby. But yeah, I struggled. And
the support that's probably there is a lot better now. Probably wasn't there at that time.
No, and it wasn't really recognised though, was it? Yeah. Let's be honest. It's only since people have come back from Afghan and Iraq that people have started talking about it, because there was battle shock and PTSD is everything.
I'd say you just came straight back from that tour and it was straight back to normal, straight back into the job and yeah, basically get your foot back under the door and just start training for whatever would. Do people talk about it much then? About the impact of what they've seen?
Not really. Again, it was, I'm probably talking now where other people have never spoke about, and guys I was serving with, would never have spoken about or whatever.
Yeah, you wouldn't have been alone in how you were feeling after
but
that.
It's just something I struggled with. And that's when I met Natalie then. Natalie's my wife, obviously. We were friends before, and then we just started dating. And I think it was just having that support there, where someone I could speak to and someone who'd listen, really, more than anything. Because as you say, there was no support network within my job. You don't want to look weak, do you? You don't want to say that you've seen this. But I think you're trying to impress a girl, maybe. And so you think, yeah, I did this and I seen that. And then you start getting into it and you start talking. And then, I don't know, it's just opening up a lot more, and I felt comfortable. So, I mean, we were only dating for probably 4 months, and I asked her to marry me, quickly like that. And I'd gone, and I was 26 at the time, I think it was. And it was a case of I'd gone all my time as a single, not even thinking about getting settled down. Welsh girl, Swansea girl. She's from the posh part, down the Mumbles.
Mumbles,
yeah, Mumbles girl. And I'm a Bonnie Mine boy. So, she wanted a bit of rough, didn't she? You can keep that bit.
You keep that bit.
But yeah, and then we're still together still. So
awesome, mate.
Yeah, she definitely helped me out. Just by being there, that support that she gave me, and just understanding. And then we got married literally a year later after, being together, meeting together, and starting dating. Although we'd known each other for a few years before, we then got married a year after we'd actually met properly and got dating. So
yeah, was obviously a turning point in life, getting married and everything else. But did that sort of help you want to then stay in and do a full career then? Because you were talking before saying, that might have been done with the army then after that tour.
Yeah, I mean,
it sort of flipped. You obviously did a full career.
I was based out in Germany. So she used to come and travel and what have you. She didn't move out to Germany initially because I went straight on a trade course. It wasn't a trade course as such. It was like a class 1 engineers. So like I said, you do your second phase of training, which is your B3 combat engineer. Then you do a tick test for your B2 combat engineer. And this was your B1 combat engineer. So your higher level. So I went to do that. And then it was at that point that one of the instructors turned around to me when we were doing a PT morning, and he said, "Do you know your name's down for doing the next instructor course?" And I was like, "No, not me, mate.
I play rugby."
Yeah, I know. I'm a rugby player. I'm not gonna. I was in Germany. I was getting tax advantages of being in Germany. I was always back in the UK because I was playing rugby back and forth. So, I was like, no, not me. So I rang my staffy, and I was like, why's my name on this next list? And he said, because I'm sick of releasing you. And I thought, you knobhead. You absolute knobhead. At the time. Now, it changed my life. Because I ended up, and initially I was like, I came off the phone to him and I was like, I'm going to fail it anyway. I'm not bothered. I don't want to come here. But then pride, you don't want to fail. So you pass. And then actually being a mentor for soldiers that are joining the army, it changed me a bit. And Natalie followed me to Aldershot. We lived in Aldershot for a while. I was an instructor at Jib Barracks. And I did that for about 3 years. Still played rugby. And I managed my time, probably to the detriment of other instructors because I'd have to disappear sometimes and they'd have to cover for me. But I still managed to do it, and it still matured me a lot, and it just got me to think, actually, I'm not bad at this army stuff, and it's quite good and enjoyable. So I enjoyed it. That was a turning point.
Fast forward, mate, you had a full career.
Finished
as a
WO2. Finished at WO2. QMSI / Sergeant Major down at the Infantry Battle School in Brecon. So I finished my time there. I didn't intend.
Were you done? Or you would have carried on?
I didn't intend to finish my time, to be honest. But there was something that happened. I don't want to go into too much detail, but something that happened where I didn't feel protected in any way. I was, one of the only, definitely the senior sapper in the school. There was a couple of corporals there that were engineers, but it was predominantly infantry led. One of my instructors had done something, didn't follow the AGI system properly. It wasn't a bad beasting at all in any way, but because I was the officer in charge, if you like, the sergeant major in charge, I was then under investigation, and I was getting done for ill treatment of a subordinate. Right. And that went on, and that screwed with my head because, for that type of treatment, you're talking losing my pension. I was getting to the 21-year point, losing my pension, getting reduced in rank, having that bad reputation when I'd done nothing wrong. Yeah. And no matter how many times I went up to the adjutant and spoke to him, his answer was, well, you were in charge. That's it. So luckily, I was away playing army rugby. I got speaking with a guy, Sean Burley, who's like a brigadier, major general, been high up, ranking officer, based over in Aldershot. Very well in with the army rugby. Got chatting with me and asked me how my job was. I said to him, I'm not happy. So he invited me in his office for a coffee. We had a little chat. I explained. He got straight on the phone to the adjutant, saying, I'm going to come and give a character reference for this guy. You've got it all wrong. You got one of my soldiers there. I'm not happy. I'm going to come and speak to your commanding officer on Monday. On the Monday, I got called into the office and was told it was dropped. And I was like,
power of rugby, mate.
It was fun, but I just thought, why did it got to that stage? And it just gave me a sour taste. I'd just done 20 odd years.
That's more about the individual or than the actual I mean, you can easily focus on it's all the army against you there, but it could have really just said
but it just, I've thought, I'm reaching 40. What am I doing? Am I going to keep having this happen? Am I going to always have to answer? Am I always going to justify actions of other people as I'm getting higher in the ranks? And it just left a sour taste. And I just then started, it was at the time where, because I was based in Brecon, I used to travel back home quite a bit. And one of the boys said to me at the time, when I first got there, earning a bit of extra cash, I'll get your door license and I'll get you some door work. So I ended up working on the doors in Swansea, a club called Fiction. And I was working on the front door. And then so I was working with civilians, I was working in the civilian sector, security sector. And then their sister club was Prism nightclub in Cardiff. And at the time, Prism were going through a really bad time. They were in the red with the local police. They had the wrong staff working there. They just sacked their head doorman. And they were talking and they were like, look, I've got this W02, this warrant officer who's looking after my door in Fiction in Swansea, sorted the door out, sorted all the shit out. Give him a chance. So I went up and I had 30 security door staff to look after as I was still serving. But I just took that military ethos with it, getting rid of the shit. I just didn't want you. If I'd rather go undermanned and have quality blokes there than have that one individual who's grabbing people by the throat or coming in with fucking white line hanging out of the nose because they just done it before they started work. Not go home. I'd rather just get rid. And I used to give briefings and so we turned it around. We got in the green. And like I said, I had 30 door staff to look after while I was still managing the as a Sergeant Major, if you like, in Brecon. And I just thought there's more I could offer a lot more. I could do a lot more. And that's when I made that decision for my family then to think, I need to look at the future. What am I going to do? There's money outside of this in the security industry. What am I going to do? I went on courses. I did my CP course, did very well on that. And then they offered me work looking after someone on the weekends in the centre of London while I was still serving because they understood I was serving. So I used to stay at Wellington Barracks, free accommodation, use my army ID. One of my staffies actually at the time one of my sergeants at the time was based there. So I used to just use his room because he was in Brecon. So he used to let me use his room. So it's free accommodation.
That's what you're saying. You're going to end up getting charged back.
So it worked, because it allowed me to network. I did your course before I left. I did a surveillance course. I did a private investigators course, just building up some knowledge. And then, I just wanted to think of my future, really, and my family's future. I had 4 kids at that stage, 4 kids that we wanted to give something for them rather than me just bouncing around the military. I didn't know where I was going to go next. So, I got out after 24 years.
Your transition out was relatively smooth then?
Only because I took the time.
Yeah.
Someone gave me advice about just enjoying the journey. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to enjoy that journey into going to something different. And that's what I did. I looked at all different aspects, and that's why I did all them different courses. And with your course, with the SRMC course in 2017, that's where I got loads of different knowledge. The guest speakers you bring on that pass on all this information and the knowledge, it just opened up this avenue of me understanding what security industry was about, more than just security. It's not just about security. I mentioned earlier.
We could help, mate. Did you? You had something lined up though from those. I say the moonlighting jobs you were doing while you're still in. Did you go straight out into a job then, or did you have a bit of time in between?
Well, Phil Robinson, who I mentioned earlier, is my team leader out in Kosovo. He got out and he worked in the search industry and what have you. And he offered me. He said there was a contract coming up in Lebanon. So would I be interested? And I said, yeah, got everything all together. They were waiting on the government to sign it all off to go out to Lebanon to teach the counter ID and the search side of it and everything. So that's what I wanted. And I pushed for, I'd had a history in the military before I became Sergeant Major of working for OPTAG, Operational Training Advisory Group, teaching search and counter ID stuff. I'd done it with there. So it was a natural progression really. And I was waiting for that contract. So as I said, I'd networked doing the CP stuff in London. It was always just about me ticking away and timing out until the Lebanon contract came through. What was I going to do until then? We bought a house. I changed jobs. My wife then, she'd always worked in schools, Natalie. She changed jobs and we actually went into fostering. So we did that for we still do that on the side. We do fostering. My kids are all grown up, so we have just babies coming through.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's quite. That was really interesting. I think we were talking before.
Yeah,
I mentioned obviously one of the ladies when one lad swims. She I didn't realise some people just only, not only, it's the wrong way to say it, but have the children for a very short time before they go on to sort of intermediacy between families. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, that's what happens. So my wife wanted to go into fostering all the time. She loved, she'd worked around children all her life. I was always quite stubborn. I don't want to do it. I've got 4 kids of my own. I want to give them everything. So I was selfish in a way, but I wanted it for my kids. And then she came home from school one time crying because something had happened with a foster parent had dropped off a child they were looking after. And I thought, how could you do that as a foster carer? You're there for these children. You can't just drop it. So I sent off the paperwork then, and I got everything involved with Swansea fostering. And we signed up and we did the course, which took about a year. We started with a young boy, 6, but that was a big clash with my own children. And we didn't go into it to damage my own children in any way. And then from there, we just dealt with babies. And we have babies now. We've had, 10 babies in the last 7 years that we look after from. And you have them straight from birth, straight from the hospital, 9 times out of 10 straight from hospital, or we do anyway. And, we have them for a period where decisions are made where the parents can change their lives and sort themselves out. And then, because ideally that's the gold standard. You want them to go back with their parents, But sometimes on the other side of it, you need to break away from that circle as well, because otherwise it's just, you find that these parents have come from a family where their parents are drug addicts and alcohol and they were ill-treated. So it's that vicious circle. And sometimes you think what's better for the child is actually a new family, a new life. But yeah, that I transitioned, loads of different things I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. I was still waiting for that. And then I was looking after the same family while I was still in. And as I say, we got into the fostering side of it as well. Natalie had started a new career. I was looking at only a couple of months left, what I was going to do. And then one day there was a chauffeur that didn't turn up for work. So an agency chauffeur was sent across. So I'm sat outside waiting for him for the principal to come out that we were looking after on my part-time basis. And I got chatting with him and he introduced me to this agency. I went for an interview for one job. And he said, after I met this guy, Alex said to me, actually, there's another family here that have just come in, a Chinese family. I think you'll be a better suit. So I'd like to introduce you. And I left the army on the Friday and I started working for the Chinese family on the Monday. And I'm still with them 8 years later.
Brilliant.
So
a good story. That.
Yeah, it transitioned massively from just being their CPO to I do everything for them now. The trust that they've got in me.
Well, you're like the business advisor, like
everything. Personal assistant, I'm the house manager, the staff, organising contractors, medical, visas. I had a message this morning. They know I'm here for the podcast. I had a message off the principal this morning saying, "Good luck. You're awesome. Anyway, you'll do great."
Nice.
Little things like I'm part of the family, and I went out to Hong Kong with them just last year. I was with them in Hong Kong and we were out on their yacht, huge yacht. It was the daughter's birthday and, they're having photographs taken as a family and there was other work staff there from Hong Kong, but they called me in to have a photo with them as part of the family, and it's nice, then, my company's going really well at the minute. Really.
So when did the company come out of that then?
2019. So it started off because they introduced me to one of their friends and basically they were looking for someone like me. They'd said to the family, we want someone like Garry. So boss had said to me, do you know anyone? And I was like, yeah, I can help out. And then from that, they said to me, you should set up a business, you should help. And I thought, well, I've landed on my feet. Not many people do that, especially in the CP industry. People bounce from one job to another, to another, to another. And it's just, there's no continuity. Sometimes you don't know when you're getting a salary or you do things that you're not really happy with doing. And that's like I go back to, enjoy your journey. If you're going to do what you love doing, then enjoy it. But yeah, I decided to stay with the family because they advised me on setting my company up. The Lebanon job, I just thought, I'm on good money here. Why go out to Lebanon in, wearing shit clothing when I'm in the centre of London, close to Buckingham Palace. I'm home nearly every other weekend. I'm wearing jacket, shirt, trousers. I'm enjoying this. And so that's why I decided to stay. I mean, the Lebanon contract didn't go through in the end anyway.
Well, like if, business or life is about luck and sort of timing, right place, right time, and good things come to good people. Like, you've, that journey, that next part of the journey, you've obviously set up your own business, your own consultancy, which has gone, we don't make this gone massive very quickly. I mean, that's all from your hard work. I know you had a bit of luck. Maybe that's wrong with you, perhaps at the beginning, to sort of embed yourself with a family that's led on to other things. But the next part you've created, where your company's going now is now you've had to, you've got good at the job you were doing, and now you've your next part is, obviously the chats we were having last few days is you ought to become a businessman now, haven't you?
Yeah, that's scary.
It's 5-6 years in now, though.
But it was quiet. I never set it up to excel. I set my company up. Like I said, I knew I'd fell on my feet. I wanted a company that was, and that's the reason I thought so hard about what I was going to call it, my logo, everything. And there's so much thought behind, exclusively private. I wanted it to be an exclusive, something different. I wanted to offer something private, discreet. I don't want to push myself. And then I read up on up in Scotland, they still use it, under the rose. Don't know if you've ever heard that saying. That's my slogan. If you look carefully underneath exclusively private, it says under the rose. No, it's a slogan which is used from Roman times. And anything that was said underneath a rose was kept it's Chatham House rules. It's kept quiet. I'd never, like I said, it was just research. And I thought, I like that logo. I like the rose.
Yeah, I like that, mate.
But then the rose looked too English. So if you look too close, and I know I was born in England, I get it. But like I said, I was reborn in Wales. My heart's in Wales.
The children are Welsh as well.
Yeah, exactly.
My kids are English, mate, but I still love them, but it's hard.
But if you look carefully at the rose, there's a dragon's head coming out the top of the rose. And the stem of the rose is actually a dragon's tail as well. So it's all little things like that I spent time on, but I didn't push it. And I did a couple of things. I helped out a couple of people, but I didn't push the company because I was working full time. I didn't need that company to excel. I wanted other people to find full-time work I did.
But you needed a mechanism, didn't you, to them opportunities you were landing. And I suppose accidentally or wherever, it's got probably bigger than you.
Yeah, I never expected this.
The Garry Windle we met on SRMC course, which was probably I don't know what I'm doing next sort of thing compared to now.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is kind of crazy, mate.
Oh, completely. And it's down to meeting different people, networking with different people, having a large network of people I can rely on and ask advice for or point in the right direction. People that have come to me, I've been confident enough to say, go and speak to these boys, Pete and Dunks, go and speak to them. They're the right people, like I've just recently done with one of the boys.
And giving back though, the fact that you can give back, and I assume you employ a lot of people that you know and trust.
I've got to, yeah.
You have to in that space, but what opportunity for them. I'm sure you got your extended friend network's probably getting bigger now once people know you're doing this now.
Yeah.
Can you help us out, Garry?
And I've had that, but you've got to be careful. And I've learned that.
Well, more careful for what you do, because if your business, say our business, obviously is a lot on social media and everything else, your business can't be for the kind of the reasons you kind of alluded to. You've built up your business from your people are trusting you, trusting the brand, trusting the company. So it's almost harder, but you've built it up without being exposed, without being out there,
exactly.
Without having that somebody yearn about you on social media or a website. Or I know you got a website, but do you know what I mean? It's all from people having trust in you, really, which is.
And I want to keep that reputation.
You can't make a mistake, can you?
No, and I can't. I've got to make sure who I employ, who I look after, and it's got to work both ways. I'm a great believer, and like I said, so many people in the CP industry as well, they'll bounce from job to job, and sometimes they don't even enjoy who they're working for. Yeah. So it's got to work both. If you're not going to enjoy what you're working for, no matter how professional you are, doesn't matter what you say, yeah, I'm going to be 100% professional. You're not, because you're not enjoying who you're working for. You've got to enjoy your journey. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. And that's where I've always wanted, I've had to turn down work because it just wasn't for me. It wasn't for my company. And I didn't want to put my name to something like that. I've pointed them in the right direction of someone who can do that, who is a bigger company. But it was when, and it was an ex-bootneck actually, a guy I'd met on my CP course, and he contacted me probably September 2023. And he said, look, I've just started working for this family, for this company. They're looking to change one of their security companies. Are you interested? It's a big contract, blah, blah. And I was like, it's not for me. It's too big for me. I'm not that type. I don't want to push myself out there. But then I was chatting with Natalie and I was thinking, well, I'm not going to learn or look to expand if I don't put my toe in a little bit and just see. So I contacted him back and I said, look, I'll put in a bid. I'd never done a proposal before. I'll put in a bid. All I ask is give me some feedback so I know where I go wrong, etc. And yeah, I put this proposal in. And again, it goes down to, I didn't want to make myself look an idiot, or I knew I was expecting not to get it. So I did a really good proposal. And yeah, I got down to the last two. Client wanted to meet me. So we met for some food. He said to me, at the end of the day, you're down to the last two. You're the smallest company. You've got no history, no background, but you're actually the most expensive as well. What are you going to bring to us? But like I said, and I go back to, I will only employ good guys. I'll only employ professional people because I've got to protect my reputation as well. So if you want this, and it is a high profile thing, I'm only going to put good guys in there. And what you'll get from me is a personal. I might be the smallest, but the companies will put 1,000. They've got a lot of different things to juggle.
And it's going to mean more to you, mate.
Exactly.
It means everything.
Yeah, exactly. And it does mean everything, because it's a personal thing. And I've got a personal touch with that. So, I ended up winning the contract. And it's just
you see that a lot across loads of industries now, that they're going away from going to these big players all the time. And actually they prefer the service they get from a small organisation because it means more to them.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that service. Sometimes you get too big, you can't keep that professionalism up because you can't monitor every single person. You've got to work for yourself. It's a lot of the way we work, mate. We get gigs on that bit because we are, might seem like we're massive. We're not tiny, but we do that tailored.
But you're personal
services.
As well.
Yeah.
That's where, it goes back to people I've learned from, throughout my career. You're personal. Even though I did the course in 2017, I still keep in touch. I still chat to you. I still seek advice. You're there at the forefront of your business, SRMC. That's you. And that's what people know you to as, SRMC. I want that for me as well, where people know exclusively, oh, that's Garry. Garry who's on the end of the phone, Garry who helped out XYZ and did this, and did this for me when I needed it. That's Garry. That's exclusively private.
I like the line of we make mistakes, but we don't make them twice.
Yeah,
we all make the same mistake twice. Just be honest with people.
You rectify things quickly.
Yeah,
if there is a problem. Okay, yep. Sorry about that. Get it. You get it. If it's changing personnel, it's changing personnel. Whatever you need to do.
I've never had to sack anyone before, and I've sacked 8 people in the last 10 months.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, oh God, but it just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah.
People can hide behind a CV, can't they? They can bluff a CV. They can put down whatever they want. Unless you do due diligence and check every single thing, some people can hide behind a CV. And it's not until you actually meet them and you get to know them. And again, it's just down to my personal standards and the people I put in place. Like we spoke about earlier, some of my leaders, which some of my team leaders are top quality, and I trust them. So when they're saying to me, you've sent this guy here, but no, we're struggling. It's just not a fit. Then I've got to make that decision.
Mate, you've just you've gone from being in Twin Town, driving the car around Bonnymine Rugby Ground. If people don't actually know the car, there's a Bonnymine Rugby Club in there where they drive the car around.
AC Cobra.
To our richest friend.
Definitely won't say richest, mate. No,
you're joking. No, mate, it's been a pleasure having you on, mate. And listen, your story. Sure, we could chat all day.
I know, I do talk. People will tell you.
A few, mate. I think there'll be a part 2 for this one. There's bits we can go down and take a bit further at another time. But I
think people will generally be inspired by your journey, mate. And yeah, really. Well done. So it sounds like a
well done, mate.
Yeah, well
Pat on the back.
No, brilliant, mate. It's honestly kind of
keep the journey going, mate. It's good to see. It's always good to see success stories, and there's been a lot of them, thankfully, from like that we've come across, and seeing that, and it's all down to people like yourself that worked hard and worked it out along the way, and still working it out like we are. We're still. Not say we're blagging it, we probably are a little bit. We're sort of 12, 13 years in now.
But as long as you can back it up, I say.
And you're digging out to help other people, mate.
Yeah.
You're trying to give out more than you're taking. Which is,
it's not about giving back. I wouldn't say it's giving back because, I haven't changed. I'm still a humble guy. I enjoy what I do. I've got my family. We look after young babies. We balance the business. We've moved house so many flipping times because we just can't seem to find the right house. But I've still got my family. My parents have gone through shit the last couple of years, with health-wise. But I think it just brings you back to roots. I'm still the same guy. It's not about giving back. It's just about, like you say, I like to help people. Because I think it's, like I said, it's in my nature. It's that protection thing, where I've always done it. So,
to obviously kind of all three of us rugby lads, just to finish off, mate, is there anybody older in the Welsh Premiership that's played a game of rugby other than yourself? It's got to be a record older. There.
I don't know. I've never definitely not this season because that's been highlighted. But no, I think at 50 I'm probably the oldest player to have played. And it's not over. Yeah. No, I've pulled my hamstring a little bit. Yeah. But I
was just walking on the pitch.
No, prior to the game. Yeah. But no, I've definitely got a couple. Natalie's not happy that I'm still playing, but while I still can, I'll still keep putting.
My dad used to go and play and just tell my mother he was just watching.
Really?
Yeah.
But he's got his
boots in the car.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. I'm fine in the game. It's the next morning when I wake up and I'm struggling to get out of bed.
Well, you can have an ice bath later, mate.
I know you did say. Shorts.
Awesome, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers for your time.
Thank you.
Catch you soon.
Good luck.